Welcome to part 1 on how to structure your diet the right way. Yeah. My name is Will, and I am the Catholic dietitian. One of the sayings in the Catholic Church is memento mori. Remember that you will die. Now, what we choose in our lifespan, so we all have an expiration date, we have to remember that we are going to die. But what we choose to do in our life affects everything. Where we're going, are we going to heaven or are we going to hell? Now, what we choose in our lifespan can also affect how long we live and how healthy we live during our life. So lifespan is how long you live, but health span is how many good years of good health that you have to live it. What we choose to put in our bodies really affects both our lifespan and our health span. There are 3 primary inputs to the human body. There's the air we breathe, the drinks we drink, and the food we eat. So there's a correct order to doing certain things. The Catholic Church has laid out an order to how you live your life, and this is called the liturgical year. There are different fasts, there are different feasts, there are different prayers, there are different penances that you're supposed to do on every single day. So you can best dispose your soul to heaven on your judgment day. Because our ends are our primary focuses on why the church has its proper traditions, so too must we order our diet so that the nutrients can reach their proper ends so our body can function the way it's supposed to function to prevent any diseased or disordered state. God made us a certain way, and this way is called our human physiology. Different organs function different ways, and different nutrients are used in different ways by each individual organ. Now, when we eat food, there are 2 primary ends. Food is used to build, but it is also excreted, and both functions are very important because as we live our life, we have an expiration date. The food we eat really impacts every single aspect of that. Food is excreted in 3 primary ways. The first way is poop, the second way is urine, and the third way is your breath. Your poop can be measured on something called the Bristol stool chart. It ranges from 1 to 7, 1 being a very liquidy, diarrhea-like poop, and 7 being a very hard, deer-like poop. And we want something in the middle. We want a long, smooth rod, which would be a number 4 in the Bristol stool chart. There are 3 things that are necessary for poop to come out of you. The first one is fiber. Fiber is really important for a few things. Number 1, for building stool bulk. The second is for feeding good bacteria. Good bacteria make up a huge portion of your feces. Fiber is also used to excrete different waste products that your body has. So some waste products are excreted in the urine, and a lot of them are excreted in the poo, in your feces. And so we have to have fiber to bulk the stools, to bind the waste products, to properly get them out of your body. Poop also requires fluid. So water is the main source, and it has 2 primary functions. The first one is it softens stools. If you have a whole bunch of fiber but no fluid, it's going to be a very hard stool and it's going to be hard to pass through. But if you have a lot of water, you help make that stool a lot softer, and it helps lubricate your intestines so it can come out easier. And the third one is motility. So motility is when your gut moves the poop along. It requires a lot of blood flow and energy. This energy comes in the form of A, carbohydrates, and B, protein. And the main protein used is glutamine. The second part of motility is movement. Blood flow is really important for motility, and exercises that increase blood flow, like running, swimming, cycling, weight training, increase stool motility by allowing proper blood flow to the intestines. The second way that food is excreted is in the urine. Now, when you eat food, there's fluid that goes through your kidneys, and it recycles waste products and excretes different nutrients, mainly protein, but also micronutrients and other waste products in the form of uric acid. It's important to make sure that you're peeing clear. There's an old saying, if you aren't peeing clear, you're living in fear. Hydrate or dihydrate. You want to make sure you're drinking enough water so you're peeing a minimum of 5 times every single day. And to be properly hydrated, you should be peeing between 8 and 12 times every single day. So every 2 to 3 hours that you are awake. Water is really good for a lot of things. I think everyone knows the benefits of water. As we mentioned in our last video, it's really good for building up saliva and preventing tooth decay, but it's also good for hydrating our cells. We are mostly water. We are over 70% water, and it's important that we have enough fluid so our cells can maintain proper integrity and they can function properly. When we eat food, that food is absorbed and then it has to get burned somehow. Food is burned, it's created into carbon dioxide and water. So glucose or fat is turned into carbon dioxide and water, and then we breathe out our fat. We breathe out our energy. It takes 29 kilograms of oxygen to burn 10 kilograms of fat. So making sure that you're breathing enough, you're taking big deep breaths in and big deep breaths out are really important for properly excreting different foods like fat and like carbohydrates. There is a certain order in which our macronutrients are used. The macronutrient that's used the most for energy production is carbohydrates. The second one is fat, and the third is protein. Our bodies are built for using carbohydrates. Blood sugar spikes are normal, and blood sugar spikes are healthy. Insulin spikes are normal, and insulin spikes are healthy, especially after a meal. Our body was designed to control carbohydrate consumption to not let us get too high of blood sugar, but also not let us get too low. This is called homeostasis. This is a normal, it is a healthy reaction to food. Excess carbs are stored in the form of glycogen in your liver and in your muscle cells. More are stored in your muscle cells than in your liver. Most of our major organs use carbohydrates as their either only or primary source of energy. For example, our brains, our blood, our muscles, they all use carbohydrates as their primary source of energy. So, when creating a healthy diet, it is important to know that carbohydrates are the nutrient that should be the highest priority because we have to have energy to live. We don't want too much, but we also want enough so that we can live a long, healthy life. And having a diet with a lot of carbohydrates will allow us to have the proper energy that we need to live a long, healthy life. The second macronutrient used for energy production is fat. Now, there are many organs that use fat as a primary source, but they also use carbohydrates in a good amount. The first one of them is the heart. The heart uses a lot of fat for metabolism, but it still uses a lot of carbohydrates. Fat is a healthy and important part of the diet, but it's not necessary in the quantity that carbohydrates are necessary. There are 2 essential fatty acids that are essential for us to live. The first one is ALA, or alpha-linolenic acid, which is an omega-3 fatty acid, and the second one is an omega-6 acid, which is linoleic acid. These 2 become longer chain fatty acids called EPA and DHA, which is the omega-3, and arachidonic acid on the omega-6 side. These are very important in our diet, but they aren't really necessary for energy utilization. We get all the fats that we need usually if we're eating enough calories. There's a popular saying, the fat you eat is the fat you wear. If we take a biopsy of our fat cells, we can run it through very expensive fancy machines, and it can tell us exactly where that fat came from. When you eat fat, it gets stored as fat. You absorb it as fat, you store it as fat. It's already fat. Your body doesn't have to use any work in storing fat. You can take a biopsy of a fat cell and you can tell with a high accuracy where that came from. Was it from olive oil? Was it from chicken? Was it from beef? Was it from nuts? Was it from seeds? Where was it from? It's very easy to tell. If we take a biopsy of our fat cells, we can run it through some tests and tell you where it came from. The last one is protein. Protein is very rarely used for energy. It's more used for building organs and building different cells in our body. Building immune cells, building muscle cells, building liver cells and heart cells, replenishing lost protein because we pee some of it out, we poop some of it out, and we have to have different ratios of protein for different cells. And so having a little bit excess protein can be an okay tool. So if we're properly structuring our diet, we have carbohydrates as the main source of energy, protein as the building block, and fat as a contributing factor in the diet, mainly focusing on omega-3 and omega-6 fatty acids. In order for macronutrients to be used properly, we also have to have a good amount of micronutrients. These micronutrients are cofactors and coenzymes in making sure that your macronutrients are used properly. Burning calories is an inflammatory process. Because it's an inflammatory process, it's important to have antioxidants, mainly found in plant foods called phytonutrients, to help combat this inflammation. So in conclusion, we know that we should have a diet that's centered around carbohydrates, mainly plants, because they have lots of phytonutrients, they have lots of carbohydrates, and they have a good amount of protein, and they're a lot lower in fat than other foods. We want a diet that's high in antioxidants and very low in pro-oxidants. We want to make sure we're getting a lot of fiber so we can poop properly. We're drinking a lot of water so that we can flush toxins out of our urine. And we want to make sure that we're breathing properly as well. And that can be done and accomplished through exercise and controlling your diaphragm. Feel free to subscribe for how to make a breakfast, lunch, and dinner according to your human physiology and how God made you. God bless.